Okay, everybody, thanks for coming along. One of the challenges we have with the group is that the people that come along really enjoy it. It's finding the time to come back. All the feedback we got from them is great. They love it. They love the fact that there's interaction, that they get their hands on an expert, that they can talk about something that's really key to the business. I mean, the background to the construction network is that it was kind of brought together to replace the trades hub. I don't know if were you a member of the trades hub, Kevin? No. The trades hub was an organisation for trades. Were you a trades hubber?
I was.
You was, yeah. Right, and it kind of moved into the EBA. Towards the end of the trades hub, it was very much a case of there was a lot of non-trade people in it. There was more non-trades than there was actually trades. I went along to one and was kind of sat at a table with 8 people around it, which 3 of them were trades guys, and the minute he got up to speak, they walked out. So the aim of this is that it's trades and it's only trades. Only non-trades people in the room will be the speaker and us, so that it gives them a chance to network. I was talking to a client this morning while giving them a bollocking for not looking on the phone, to say you need to get out and network, and this is a good place to come because you'll meet other trades and you'll talk to other trades, and you'll get, hopefully they'll like you, you like them, and do some business with you. Because that was one of the strengths of the trades hub. I think the strength of the networking before and afterwards was kind of part of it. So this was kind of set up to try and create a kind of community between trades and construction people, suppliers and experts, where you can go and get some help and advice out just within the trades. Okay, so and we're not really aware of anything that operates like this. So, I mean, on the website, if you become a member on the website, there's, as you see, Jamie's taking the video for a reason, that you can go back and look at the presentations again and again. We don't, let's say, limit it to one that's a group. We have another group in.
Hi guys, sorry.
No, it's all right. Hi there. We have another group, kind of group up in Leeds, which you can go to as well. You know, it's as many times as you want. We don't limit you, and we don't keep you back from trying to get links with other construction and trades guys. Okay. So this is the type of people we live with, or we work with. I'm due to speak at the UK Construction Week conference on the 9th of February about enabling subcontractors, and one of the things we're talking about is we work with people who knows that shit flows downhill, but they're the ones living in the valley. And when I showed this to the CITB, they went, "Oh, I don't know if you should really use that," but it's a catchphrase that we've used a lot, and when I go to other networking events, that's what I say, and everybody seems to like it. And so really what we really kind of what we do is we work with people who are very much in the contractor owner MDs, SMEs. We work with over like 40 of these businesses currently, to actually help them put things in place that will help to keep main contractors at bay, site managers at bay, with all these, and help them create audit trails. Because without audit trails, we have nothing. So how do you record your extras? Well, he's my mate. I'll just leave it till the end. We'll sort it at the end. Don't you worry about it, right? Get to the end. What the hell is all this? Which is why we have people like Anita along to help talk to us about having the right process in place. Then on the other side, we've got our site operatives, which are subcontractors, don't make any money on the job, leave early. Number of clients I kind of work with who say, I've had a phone call from one of the subcontractors to come and money on this job. That's because they've started at 8:30, they've left at 2:30, they've still claimed 120 quid, 30 quid that they would do for having a full day, and still got 2 days let's say work at the end. So one of the things we do, we'll work a lot with them, is to help them to kind of get over that. Wrong button. So this is what we do. We help them to develop kind of strategies, we put processes in place, help you manage your site staff and subcontractors, let's be better. I'm very much of a hands-on. I'm talking to a number of clients at the moment where they're talking about, they have a business coach. In fact, I'm talking to a couple of guys who are saying we've been on this fantastic workshop, we've got action plans, and I haven't got a clue how to put this stuff into practice, which is where we come in, and that's the idea. And also potentially if you're registered with the CITB and in construction, you're legally obliged to be registered with the CITB. We can help you claim cash from the CITB, so we virtually come for nothing, because we'll make the funding fit. Okay. So, well, what we try and do is we try and maximise the networking here and kind of minimise the speaking. I think that's my bit. I'll be back at the end. I'm going to hand you over to Anita now, who's going to help talk to us about how we manage our election money, improve our cash flow. All of those things have a setting up to fail here, Anita, you're laughing.
I'm laughing at the fact that I'm not standing up on this one. I'm actually not Kingsland Business Recovery, but
And we'll edit that one out. You are at the moment.
I'm Kingsland Receivables.
Oh, right, sorry.
Part of the Kingsland Group.
Yeah.
And I'm sat next to the person that I'm going to be working with, because I'm leaving there shortly, so don't let that influence anything. And we also have another gentleman that crosses over on some of my work in the room, Neil over there, who's a mediator, former QS, and is really good at helping manage contracts and helping influence people to get it right. And I love the idea of ConstructNet. That's why I'm here. I call it ConstructNet because that is the name of the website. And
Do you want me to handle it for you?
you can if you like. There's more in the bag, but I only bought them as a prompt for me, really.
Okay.
But I do have them. And these are just basics. And some of the trades make basic mistakes. And I call them trades because construction now has its own little protocol and its own little processes and its own little court. And the problems, if anything at the moment in the industry, seem to be getting worse rather than better, despite it having its own court, its own processes. And some of that you can put down to a number of things. You can put some of it down to historically some language barriers on site, because we've had a lot of foreign words on site that sometimes haven't fully understood, and that's been some disputes that have come to us. A lot of it is also down to what constitutes a contract and what can I do about it when it all goes wrong, and how do I realise when it has gone wrong. And it varies on the level of the business as to where they are at in their development, as to when they recognise that there is a problem. But at the moment, most of it is final account. But you have to strip it right back to the beginning. A business, the oxygen of a business is cash, so obviously sales as well, and work. Which do you put first? The work or the cash? Without the work, there is no cash. Without the cash, you can't fund the work. So they both have an equal standing. Without cash, your business will have a cardiac arrest, and there's no doubt about it. And unfortunately, that causes massive stress on the owner or directors. Biggest problem out there at the moment is entering into work without any agreement or terms and conditions in place whatsoever. And that could be, oh, well, I don't need them, it's with the contract. Well, unless you've got a witness that recorded it with their consent and they're willing to come forward 6 months later and verbatim remember it all, you have no witness for that contract. So if there is a dispute at the end, how do you prove what was agreed and when? And if it was agreed as an extra or a variation on site, what have you got? In most cases, when cases come to myself, it's a WhatsApp message or a text or a sort of email, but not quite hitting the subject matter on the head. And the worst thing anybody can do is, as Grant said, leave it, well, later. We'll sort it later. Later does not resolve a dispute when it comes out. Later creates the dispute. And you can have a really good QS on that site and a really good site manager. The problem you'll have is when it comes to it, the site manager will deny the conversation because the QS is in charge of the budget. And when they walk off site, he may actually admit it to the QS, but he's not going to admit it in front of you when you're having that argument. So it's always a case of being prepared. MCs will often push their terms onto a subby, and in many cases you do have to accept a lot of their terms, but you can push back. There are ways of pushing back without losing the contract, but in many cases you will still have the mandatory terms that they will enforce, and you have to learn to manage the contract as you work it. And that's where many people fall down. There are businesses out there, we work with a few, who will review the contract for an upfront cost, and they will tell you what to look out for, how to manage your process. They'll help you manage it through. Some will look at that and think, I'm not paying that, I don't need that. But if it's a bit like almost an insurance policy, because if they're helping you manage that through and making sure you are not biting off more than you can chew initially, you can do the work, you've got the right resource, you're getting the right sign-offs, the chances are they won't even try to argue at the end, because they know that you knew what you were doing throughout the process. If that contract says they want minimum skill, make sure that you're using people that you know are delivering that skill, not just that an agency says they can do it. Because in a lot of cases, disputes are about the quality of work and having to strip it back and redo it. And then we have the problem of how do you define what was the acceptable standard? So plan your contract into that to avoid the disputes at the back end. And remember that you're funding that project. When you take those lads on, if you're agreeing to pay them weekly, fortnightly, most don't like monthly, but your contract is going to be paying you initially. They say 14 days, then it pushes it out, then it's 21, then it's at the end of the month, your application's late. Put your applications in on time and go by the days quoted in the contract. If you haven't seen a contract and they say it's on site, make sure someone takes the time to either go and look at it or request a copy, because the minute those lads set their foot on the site, you're bound by the terms whether you've read them or not. And in reality, even in a normal business, set construction aside, the average customer takes 72 days to pay, regardless of whether you tell them 30 days credit. So MC is going to abuse that even more, because they know that the process will give them longer than that, but their 14 days to put that withholding notice in shouldn't allow it. But it's amazing how often it does, because people just don't know what the process is. And they're frightened of pushing back and saying, no, I'm not having that. But the QS, at the end of the day, on a lot of jobs is on a contract. He's seldom a full-time employee. He's usually on a contract for that contract. If you leave it too long on your final account, as I've got 10 cases at the moment where the QS has moved on, and he's left the debacle behind him. And that is when the new QS has to try and make some sense out of all the paperwork that's shoved in the drawer, in the porta cabin on the site, and I do have empathy with them because they must be pulling their hair out. They have to be. And they've got no money left in the budget of the job. A lot of trades think, oh, well, God, you must be making millions because every job you do, you make a profit of. You must do, or else you won't be in business. But no. Each contract is separate. You can't poach from another contract to pay for that contract. And I really hope they do bring in ring fencing for retentions, because too many dip into the retention pot to pay the people that shout loud. And then they create a dispute on the retention later to avoid paying it. So at the moment, I know I shouldn't say it, but a retention appears to me to be a discount, because a lot of subbies don't claim it. They forget it. 5 years is a long time in business, but a retention diary can save all that. So think about 72 days as a marker. If it goes beyond anything like that, you're not going to be making a profit very long. The same rules apply in disputes in construction to any other business. They have to quantify it, they have to give you a pounds value. They can't just say, I'm not paying it because that wasn't done right. That has a value. You need to know what value they're attaching to it. They have to justify why they think it's that value, and in a lot of cases it will be overstated if they can get away with it. They will put expenses in there, accommodation, again, no receipts. It will be their averages for the year's business in a lot of cases. Or it will be, we can't get anybody to come and work for us for less than that. Is that a standard? There is no standard. The industry sets its own rates because people work for what they work. So you know yourself, the good guys should be more. So you'd expect a higher costing if you've got good guys there. You have to ratify it before you start threatening any kind of legal process, threatening to take them to court. Don't give a credit note unless you're really forced to, because once you give it a credit note, it's deemed accepted. That's it. You can't then pull it back. Negotiate with commercial risk in mind. If you get down to the end of a job and you're arguing, as in many cases people will come to me with £10,000, it's a lot not to be paid, but it's not a lot when it comes to a legal argument. And that is possibly where a lot of trades think the system is wrong, but it's the same in every other industry. £10,000 is actually not that high, and that's why they moved the small claims limit to 10,000 before you can get your costs back. Because not so long ago, people were using the court as a collection tool. It isn't a collection tool, it's a last resort. The court expects you to try everything else. They expect you to try reasonably compromising and, yes, actually offering to settle. But if you don't know what you're doing, refer it out. Because referring it out, initially you think, that costs money. Yes, it does. But whilst it's sat there as a dispute, it's costing you money. It's costing you time. Your profit erodes even more each single day that it's outstanding. And when people come to us and say, yeah, but 10%, that's my profit. Well, it's a good job if you're going to get a clean 10%, because our 10% fee isn't profit. We have to take our costs out of that. So the reality is that 10%, if that's all you're paying, and don't forget there's late payment interest, there's reasonable recovery fees. So in a lot of cases, if you get them in the right place, they're going to contribute to your costs, but not necessarily all of it, but hopefully most of it. But even if they don't, you will still have more money at the end of the process than the beginning. often in a quicker time, because it's perceived as being taken more seriously when you get a third party involved. A third party that's credible, that is, that understands the system. You will always see businesses that when you ask them, what's a credit policy? What's credit management? What's credit control? A lot of people assume that's just getting on the phone, asking for money. That's not, that's a collector. Credit control is from the front to the back. From the moment you put a tender out or receive a quote, it's the whole process the whole way through till that cash lands in your bank. And I don't know, Andrew's in the same industry as me. At the moment, there is actually quite a shortage of people that can really do that process all the way through. Some will think, oh, if I do a credit check, I'm fine. It says that they're good for that. Well, I was good for that 12 months ago, but I've had 3 CCJs since. I haven't really, but the directors also signed all his assets away in a divorce, blah, blah, blah. That credit limit is historic. Look at the payment trend. The payment trend will give you an indication of how they pay, but it does not guarantee they will pay. But any credit your business extends, it's a bit like going to the bookies. You have to be able to afford to lose it just in case. If you can't afford to lose it, you need to protect it. You can look at credit protection. If you can't get a limit for the contract value you're looking at, that's because they can see something there that makes them reluctant to give you that cover. If you're lucky enough to get the cover, make sure you understand the policy that gives you the cover, because you breach that, you have no cover. Make sure that your paperwork for every variation, out of scope, addition, everything is signed off, because one dispute freezes your cover. You haven't got any cover once there's a dispute, and yet you still have to pay that premium. If they go insolvent, that's when your credit protection really is a bonus. Even though it may only be paying you 80%, because 80% when a big one goes down is a godsend. It will quite often cover your costs and see you through that cash starvation period, because you were expecting that in your cash flow. It's difficult to know how to set a credit limit. The answer is, if they're asking for 200,000 and they're not going to give you anything up front, that rings warning bells every time with me. The bigger they are, the more they will argue. Why should I have to pay anything up front? We don't go bang. Blue chip businesses don't go bang. BHS went bang. Carillion went bang, bang a lot. And then the ripple effect of that in construction alone is 2-3 years long. And you don't know, when customers aren't paying you, they could be just one client away from Carillion. So it could actually be Carillion that's caused you the problem. Never ever would I say to somebody, put everything in one basket, one contract at a time. I always say, stick with the smaller contracts. Then if one does go, you have some to fall back on. And get your invoicing right. Actually read the contract, because I've seen so many that have put invoices in instead of applications, and then when it's come to payment, they'll be thrown back. Especially if you go for any kind of finance, invoice finance particular, construction finance. There are specialists in the market now, but they are learning slowly. A lot of them would take assignment of construction that not realising they couldn't verify it. You can't ring a QS up and verify an invoice, because 9 times out of 10 they'll say, I don't recognise an invoice. It's measured work. I'll tell them how much I've agreed. But the funders don't quite get that yet, and they're just learning how to deal with that. And I did that for 14 years, so I've seen that on both sides of the fence. So I've had QSs screaming at me because they are fed up being asked to confirm an invoice so that a subby can get funding on it. They don't want that. So get it right in the contract in the first place. If you're going to use credit controllers, make sure they understand the process that you're having to work with. There are differences between what you have to put on your invoices if you're a sole trader, a partnership or a limited company. And again, you need to learn them, you need to understand them, you need to know your obligations as a director, because those are key critical. If you come to a technical argument in a court, they will throw it out on one single technical breach. And you then have to cross your fingers that the judge will allow you to resubmit. And you can lose an enormous amount of money by getting something like that wrong. And believe me, it happens a lot, and unfortunately it happens a lot in the trades. You have to, all of you will understand what a UTR is. You have to use a UTR. You'll all understand where the VAT is. You'll all understand the CIS implications. The one area where CIS becomes a difficulty is when people don't split their invoices out and they take it on the whole lot. And then somebody doesn't spot it while a year later in the accounts, and then they're trying to get that balance back. Or they've gone insolvent and they haven't had the certs. So they're then chasing the liquidator. Can we have these certs? All of that can be avoided if you've got a good credit management policy in there, because that will be done as it occurs, not when your accountant spots it a year later. You can collect your debts yourself, you can go to debt recovery, you can do your own credit control. Money Claims Online is not really there for construction. It's amazing how many people use it, but it's not really there because it has to hive off. If it's above a certain amount, they will direct you to construction court anyway. Or they'll say, you should have mediated this first. Or the judge will say, I'm going to advise you to go shoot yourself in a room. Try to do all that before you even get to that. And don't be tempted to use Money Claims Online unless you really, really understand what to do when they come back with a dispute or a payment proposal, or you've got the legal entity name wrong. And you have to amend the judgment. Or, God forbid, you tried to sue them and it's assigned to a funder. And then they throw the judgment out and you can't enforce it, and bang, you're standing your own cost for that, and your funder will not be happy that you did it. Always, when you go to a reputable debt recovery firm, they will look at your paper trail before they even incur any costs. They want to see how strong your case is. You could tell them that your case is cast iron, but they will want to do it themselves. If they say to you, pay us £1,200 and we'll guarantee to get your money back, and that's the average amount at the moment, don't take any notice. There's no guarantee in debt recovery ever. If you have a customer that goes insolvent and it's a sole trader and it's less than 5,000, don't be trying to make them bankruptcy demand. 5,000 is the limit. Anything below that, it's CCJ, payment plan, or cross your fingers. If it's over 5k, you can make them bankrupt, but it's going to cost you to do it, obviously. And you have to be sure that they've got assets. That's where it becomes difficult, because obviously their personal assets are mixed up with their business assets, but you have to consider their partner, their spouse, their kids, their livelihood. You have to look at all that, because at the end of the day, a judge will make the decision, not you. That cost is not recoverable except for the petition cost. I would never advise people to put their own insolvency petitions in, because you can get your hand slapped quite badly if you don't go through the right process. Individuals now have more protected rights than companies. You have to give them 30 days. And if they tell you they're consulting with an advisor, you can even threaten court. So that buys them 60 days before you can even start. So sole traders, that applies to them as well. So make sure you can assume a business is limited, but it may not be. There are some big sole traders out there. Likewise, if somebody puts limited on their paperwork, make sure that they are. Don't assume there's a comfort blanket there, because that happens in the reverse. And when they go down and everybody shouts, the director should be personally liable, stop and think very carefully, because he's not. And if it was legitimate that you could recover every time from the director, we would have that out there as a service, and we don't. The reason for that is because the whole point of a limited company is to protect the entrepreneur from being personally bankrupt if the business fails. If they give a personal guarantee, which can give you that comfort, don't fall into the trap of putting it in the terms and conditions. Because when you ask someone to give you a personal guarantee, it's a proper legal document. And quite often, to give an unlimited one is very naive. So they should take legal advice on that, and you should give them at least 48 hours to do that. So when you will see it, when you go to people like Wolseley, they're big fans of personal guarantees. You will see they give you a form, and a lot of the time it'll say, I personally guarantee any account that's unpaid. And you can actually challenge that, because they should be giving you 48 hours to take legal advice, because you're putting at risk your home and anything else. So when you are asking people to give you personal guarantees, the bigger the business, the more shrewd the director will be, and he will ask to take that advice. So it's better to be a separate document. Cap the guarantee if you can, as a minimum or a maximum. But remember, you have to then keep that director personally, not as the business, personally informed if that account becomes something that you're going to have to demand on. If they go beyond terms, if they don't pay the applications on time, you're having problems, you have to write to that director personally with a copy of his guarantee and advise him, this is an issue, we are putting you on notice that we may be making demand on your guarantee. Give them that 30 days notice then. It's amazing how quick they'll sort that problem account out. Because you are warning them, we're going to come for you. Forget the business, we've already tried that, now we're coming for you. It may not be full payment, but they will do that utmost. Sometimes they will have already put a guarantee into the bank, because if you've got a finance line, they're going to do that no matter what. Always do a check on the company for debentures. Debentures will come before your debt no matter what. Debentures, if they're housing developers, every house will have a charge on it. There will not be one corner in that business the bank does not have its fingers on. And the more lines of credit they've got in the bank, the more security there will be. So don't be fooled into thinking, oh, they must have assets, because you can wind them up. For £750 limit, you can wind them up. But that's end game. You can't go any further than that winding up petition. And if they convince a judge that they can continue to trade and discharge their creditors upon sale of those houses, it will be set aside and the bank account unfrozen. They have to jump through hoops to do it. They have to have a good solicitor, but it's possible. And it happens a lot more than people think. winding up petitions go on a lot behind the scenes and they're not published. Once they're published, it's usually end game, and the business usually doesn't have anything. So you've incurred that cost, but you gain nothing. Good debt recovery firms will be honest and say, yeah, you can do it, but is it on principle? Because you're probably not going to get anything back out of it. So you're increasing your bad debt. And the whole thing is to try and avoid bad debts, which brings you back to terms, conditions, paperwork, understanding different types of finance, where you can go to finance a project. One of the biggest ones on the market at the moment is Bibby's. Bibby's construction finance is quite good. There are some private ones. Quite often you will come across them saying they will only fund stage 1 and stage 3 of a contract, because they'll only fund stage 3 because stage 2 is their buffer zone, but the whole of the contract will be assigned to them. And that does limit you obtaining finance anywhere else. So if you run on an overdraft, quite often the bank will try and encourage you to fund your contract through their finance team. Don't be pressured into that. Go to the higher market brokers, let them shop around for you and get you the best deals on the market. And at the end of the day, the more slick your paperwork is and strong it is, the better deal you will get in finance. Because that's what they look at to assess whether you are worth their investment, and it is an investment to them. And a lot of disputes come out in construction because money runs out in the pot. Because you get, and I'm going to say it as it is, you get architects who make these wonderful designs, and then when it comes to practical, it doesn't fit. You get internal designers who have wonderful concepts and ideas, but then you find out that they've put the wire in where that needs to go, and it doesn't, and then somebody has to come in and remap the whole lot, or the dry liners where it gets ripped off because they have to reroute, and then all the extras come in, and that's the cost on the job that nobody thought was going to happen. And the guy that should be getting a strip, guy or woman in some cases, it doesn't, because they then disappear to their non-liability clause. I'm only the designer, not my bag, not my problem. I don't deal with that. That's down to the PM or the SM. All you guys deal with that. And I don't think they should be able to have that protection personally, but they do in a lot of cases. And that's what causes a lot of problems on site. And I think Neil would agree, when you've got a lot of trades on site, everybody likes to get on with everybody. They have their fish and chips together, they have a pint afterwards, they even give each other lifts, and they all get along on that side. But then when it comes to payment at the end, they're not anybody's friend then. Then they're after number one, because it's their wage, it's what they were there for. And because quite often you will have 10, 20 subbies that may not be getting paid because the guy in the pyramid above has not paid down. You can shout, you can bang your head on the wall, you can post it on LinkedIn, you can put it wherever you like, but the money is not going to be forthcoming. And that is why so many will go under. It usually is wages. Because when it comes to that, they haven't budgeted the cost of the wages in with their own internal cash gap. And it always is on the end stage, or in the middle. And don't ever, ever walk off site. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because I have 4 cases at the moment where they felt they had grounds to walk off site. They had given notice they were going to walk off site by a text message to the wrong person, not in the right protocol at all. and they said they were overdue. They actually weren't, because they hadn't done their application on time. They hadn't understood the contract. So now they, unfortunately, are going to be going under in about a fortnight. And those cases hurt me personally, because I know that had they taken the time out to attend events like this and being willing to learn from people that might have been there and that are offering their services for free, not when it becomes, you know, we don't hold it for free, but these events we do, it's critical that the industry tries to take that help. But at the moment, what they do is, most of the time, put it on LinkedIn. Then they find out who gets recommended, who gets referred. And yes, it works. But when people post on there that somebody's not paid them, they are taking a massive risk on themselves, on the reputation of their own business, because it actually can have a negative business on who will do business with you for doing that. But also, if they are having problems paying you, the age-old thing is we want to protect everybody in the industry and let them know that these are bad guys. They may not be bad guys, they may be struggling guys. There is a difference. Once you put it out there, the people that are already going to lose have already incurred a loss. They've already done the work. They're already in there. So who are you protecting? In reality, nobody. If they are struggling and they may be looking at securing a finance line, or they may be in a mediation trying to recover some funds in, it's not your problem, no, but it directly impacts you. So if you put it out there on social media, you're just igniting the blue touch paper for other creditors to jump on the bandwagon and potentially push that business down. So where you thought perhaps you might be helping others, you're actually more likely to make it so we don't get anything back. And that is the harsh reality of construction now, because sadly there is still a lot of people in the industry who do think that going to stand on someone's doorstep and they will intimidate them. Now that's not something that I would be party to, but there are people out there who actually won't admit to doing it but do it. So I would always say think about it before you out it. Get it sent to someone who can act on it and at least give you an informed opinion as to whether what they're telling you is genuine. Because if they really haven't got the funds to pay, it's not going to do anybody any good. So just bear that in mind and think about what credit is, how to deal with it when you get a problem, and where you can go for help when you need it. And enjoy staying in business. Past year 5, 50% fail before year 5 is out. Hopefully you're all well into and past year 5. We're not yet.
Okay.
He is, aren't we?
All right, thanks, Anita. Anybody got any questions? Observations?
For me, it's there's been a lot of promises. Do you think the government's going to bring any sort of proper guidelines into?
They tried, didn't they? They tried with the protocols. They did try. I think they will. Neil pushes for this a lot. I think they will ring-fence retentions. I think they're going to have to do that.
You look at the likes of Carillion and not paying companies and the knock-on effect of all of that. If the big boys can do it.
I think it's two-way street. I think it's helping the guys at the bottom get educated to help themselves,
Yeah.
to work with the system and understand it, and not to think that they can work outside it, because a lot do. When you think that a lot of them are apprentices, that they've finished their apprenticeship and they're just eager to get out there and work for themselves, they don't see themselves as a business if they're a one-man subby. They create a limited company to avoid the CIS issue. But I think the government has to do something. But whose influence that'll be, I'm not sure. I think the key players, again, Interserve is going to be involved in that because they're the next layer down now. But also the medium players are coming up because Carillion Going has made that space available.
Yeah.
I also think there has to be a reality check on margins and pricing somewhere in the industry, because the actual yield isn't there in a lot of these jobs
No.
at the start. So when they apply for funding from a bank, they might get a 5 million, 10 million pot. But if they go over that, it costs a hell of a lot, the penalty for going over that as a developer. So I can see from the top end why they will argue black is white, and I can see why they see that as subby bashing. But I can see it from both spectrums, and I do think the likes of Carillion knew that was coming. They saw it, they were aware, they knew that the government carried on giving them contracts that they knew they couldn't service really. And I think instead of just stood there with their hands out to catch it. And have you got any views on how they will address it? Because it's difficult to sort of think where it might change.
No, I think it's bigger than retentions. And it's not just about retentions. There's a lot of discussion about, like you said, about value offering contracts of value and recognising what the real price is for work. But then there's a perception that in the industry that it's expensive to build in the UK compared with the rest of the world. Why is it so much more expensive to build in the UK for the rest of the world if there's such narrow margins? You know, there's something else driving other, the cost drivers that are affecting the industry rather than just blaming it on the price and looking for the client having to pay a bigger bill at the end of the day. There's deeper issues. Putting a plaster over retention isn't going to make it.
It isn't. And I think as well in the bigger ones where they are public, I think shareholders have a lot to answer for as well. The shareholders demand a profit, but they don't always have an understanding of the industry that they've bought the shares in. Some of the key shareholders will, but some of the nominal value ones won't. They've just gone into that blindly. And I think the cost of borrowing in this country is horrendous on big developments, and that is shareholder pressure, undoubtedly. Ever since the banks cracked, the whole, and I can speak from internal experience on this one, the pressure on people working within those banks, that crash had two sides, the investment banking and the normal banking. But the normal banking still paid a price for the investment banking. And the shareholder pressure behind those banks is immense. Every year they want a dividend, every single year. And to do that, quite often, you kept the interest rates on savings down, not giving money away, but they've tightened their criteria up on lending. But because there's been a smaller lending, there's been a higher rate on the riskier lends. And I think that actually contributes to it. And that's why I think some of the subby bashing comes through. Because they know 6 months before the job ends if they're going to have a problem. and applying for that additional funding when they know the interest rate it's going to have, that is a painful experience. And it can take us another 6 months to get it approved, which is ridiculously slow in this country. Underwriting should never take that long, but when you're looking at lines that big, it will. Because if that goes bang, that hits the bottom line of the bank. So I do think it will be a slow change, but I think the whole industry has to push for it.
I think it's going to be difficult. If ever there was a time to look at the whole construction industry, it was when Carillion went pop, and the reasons for Carillion getting pop. Nobody in this room doesn't know the reason that Carillion were massively undercutting everybody else. They were making small margins because the contracts were so large. The small margin was actually quite a lot of money. What they didn't factor in is the stuff that you can't factor in.
Yeah.
Which is the non-variables which happen in any industry, whatever you do. And therefore they were always towing a fine line. And, and as you say, the government continued to give them contracts, knowing that there was a tipping point at some point. And lots of other companies were stood there, as Anita says, waiting with their hands open to be able to catch the fallout of this. The main problem being that with Carillion, and I remember this years ago, you guys might not be as old as me, but when Rover went, Rover took 285 local businesses with it because they were all 100% Rover suppliers. So it has that knock-on effect. I think Neil's got it right. There's too much wrong in the construction industry to put it right quickly. It's going to have to be bites along the way.
Absolutely.
Retention maybe, retention ring fencing may be a start, because as debt collectors we get, the phrase, the shitty end of the stick. We see the lower end of stuff where it's all gone horribly wrong, and a lot of it is retentions, not being paid for whatever reason, disputes that then being raised sort of 12 months after the fact. Debt recovery for us comes in two parts, and this is why Anita and I are linking up. The first part is what I call debt prevention, which is what Anita's talking about today, getting it right from the outset. Nice, robust credit control, making sure you've got your information right. My own experience is in the courts, knowing what the judge is like and how we can get around that. Another side of that now, particularly in construction, is mediation, which Neil offers. We're getting to stages where we're suing people and we're going to court and the judge says, you need to mediate.
Yeah.
So we should have actually mediated before we went to the court and said, well, look, we've got a mediation, here's the decision. It's just that one side doesn't like it. And so it's all a little bit all over the place at the moment. And there's a cost to that, unfortunately. We try to make it so it's more cost effective. Solicitors will ask you for £1,000 to open your file and have a look at it. What we'll try and do is have a look, assess it, give you our best guesstimate of how it's going to pan out and the likely cost of doing that. But what we're really trying to do essentially is sit down with these people and negotiate a settlement. So there's going to be a loss. How that can be resolved, with my 35 years experience, I'm looking at it and shaking my head.
There is one area that I'm pushing, which is when colleges are running apprenticeships, when they're doing day release or half day in there. I have been discussing with Doncaster, Huddersfield, Wakefield colleges, looking at, and soon to be Bradford College as well, looking at doing some basic commercial business education for those apprentices. Because quite often they're going into the construction world just armed with their hands, and commercially they don't understand the implications of running their own business. And I think you can't make it mandatory, but you can put things in place to help the new ones coming into the market have a little bit more awareness of how important it is. It's not just about how much money they can make on the job, it's actually about getting the job done on time, getting it done properly, and actually understanding. Because I think it also falls down with, I've seen level twos working side by side, and one has been 10 times better than the other. So I'm stood there asking myself, how did that get passed at a level 2? And it's the same in any industry, but construction is more evident because 9 times out of 10 you've got something physical to look at to measure the work. And I think that's really important. I think the colleges can help a lot more than they do. We've got a construction protocol in place that they don't even teach to anybody that's studying any kind of construction course, because they only perceive it as, you want to be a brickie, let's teach you how to be a brickie. But not, let's teach you how to run a brickie business and deal with it.
I think a lot of the people we deal with have started off as an apprentice, gone to work as a tradesperson, been like, so working for a subcontractor. That subcontractor's not been great, that the site manager has liked them, and say, why don't you just come and work for me directly and I'll see you out. All right, yeah, okay then. So all of a sudden he's a sole trader, and then a couple of months later or a few jobs later, the same site manager who's looking after them says to them, I'll tell you what, do you know any other trades guys, brickies, plasterers, whatever? Yeah. I'll tell you what, because I need some additional guys, why don't you bring them along and I'll pay you, and you can pay them out what I pay you? And it's like, yeah, right, that sounds like a good idea. And then 5 years or 6 years or 10 years later, they wake up and they've got vans travelling all over the country, they've got contracts all over the country, and they're thinking, how the hell did I get here? Because this wasn't part of my plan. And all of a sudden, they've now got contract disputes, they're now not doing jobs, they're relying on subcontractors who are not performing as they are. And those are the type of discussions I have almost on a daily basis. All of whom, by taking some time at the start and setting up a good process, rather than just, no, I'll just go after the money, ends up in, if I can go back to my shit flowing downhill and living in the valley, that's where they are.
But it's sadly right. The industry as a whole, excluding people that have learned, having been there, or seen their mates go down that route, no, I'm not going there. The industry as a whole seems to be, and it's not just construction, but primarily it's harder with construction. When you set a business up, it's your baby, and you don't want anybody else involved, you don't want anybody else touching it, you know, it's your idea. When you get to a point where you have to let the reins go, many people don't recognise it, but to me, that's the point where there's a massive reluctance. It's almost like it'll never happen to me. I don't need to learn, or they don't want to get involved in learning that process because why do I need to? And yet it's the only business line where people would say that. Because if you look at recruitment, hairdressing even, dog grooming, nearly everybody who sets up in those business has done some kind of business studies qualification. And yet construction seems to be the odd one out. And I think that possibly could go a long way to resolving it at the bottom end.
Yeah, but I think also the thing with the NVQ providers is they only get paid out on doing the NVQ.
Yeah.
They don't get paid for anything else. No. So you're going to come in, you're going to do, we're going to look at the range criteria. That's what you have to look like when you come out of the machine at the end. Anything else is, well, hang on, that's got a cost to it that we don't get anything back for.
Yeah.
And I think probably it's talking to the people like the city and guilds and trying to build that into the range criteria in terms of, we need to give you a bit of kind of business. They'll do their basic skills, but they don't give them basic business skills because they just think they're going to go and work as an apprentice somewhere and they'll be there forever. And as I say, one of the things, we have these conversations all the time, and sometimes the biggest thing for the guys we work with is it's a fear factor. The fear of, oh, actually, if I take this company to court, I'll never work for them again. They won't want me to do any work, so they pay me 100 grand a year. If they're going to take 20 grand off because I've done something wrong, I'll take the 80 because it's giving me 80 grand's worth of work, right? There's also a fear factor that if I do take them to court and I lose, because they're bigger than us and they will try and like say muscle them around and kind of bully them. I've got 2 cases at the moment of the possible fees there on losing, and you look at the evidence they've got and you think, well, why would you lose? There's just no way you can lose, but it's just like, don't risky. It's only 18 grand, and it might cost me more than that, and I can't afford to lose the extra. And so this is where the main contractors like to win, because they've got like some more resource. The fear factor of the subcontractor, and I might never work for them again, and I say to them, well, actually, there's not enough tilers, plasterers, painters, roofers, joiners, bricklayers at the moment. They can't get them. There are a number of clients, a number of main contractors I go to say, no, any subbies grant. I know loads. Do you think we could have a word with them? Absolutely. You know, I have no problem with that. But it's because they just can't get enough like some decent ones. And that's a challenge, and it's about one of the things I'm talking about at UK Construction, because unless they believe in their business and believe what value they bring to the job, because your Carillions and your Intercepts can get all the contracts alike, if they can't get subcontractors to work on them, they are screwed. And it's recognising that you bring a value to this, but you need to be organised in bringing a value to this, and rather than patting yourself on the back when you've got the contract, you oh, that's great, that's a good bit of contract. Actually read the bloody thing and send them an email that says, this is how we'll work.
Yeah.
That covers, we're going back to your terms and conditions of your invoice, are no good.
No, those contracts.
The horse is gone. The stable door's been wide open, the horse is run away. Where actually, it'd be far better to do something that starts saying, thank you for the contract, we've read this, we understand it, this is what we're going to do. This is our company kind of policy, so if the job's been delayed by X amount of dates, guess what? We'll be issuing with a delay notice. If our invoice is wrong, we'll expect you to invoice us with a pay less, let's say notice within 14 days of our invoice. Otherwise our invoice is due, and all of a sudden it's taken away from that kind of matey relationship to having a professional relationship. If you go in as a professional, so you go in to have a professional relationship, you send over your T's and C's, that's what you do. And they don't.
When you spoke earlier, right at the beginning, when you mentioned trade sub, the essence of trade sub was there was a load of local businesses who essentially become businessmen by default, as you've alluded to. What they do is they go to college, they do what they train for whatever they want to train for, and then think, oh, I'll work for myself. And so they become businessmen by default. And what they do is they go out, because they're pretty good at what they do. What they haven't realised is the back office is massive. So they've no setup for back office, even simple things like invoicing. I alluded to that earlier when I spoke to you, where we said, you know, when I went to Trades Hub, I was called in because most of them had a debt problem. So it was a no-brainer for me, 160 plus members, we're all owed money from all sorts of different walks. But the invoicing, a lot of the invoicing wasn't up to scratch. And this is not a diss of Craig Wilkinson. I think he does a great job. He goes in, he teaches you, because he's done the hard yards. He teaches you how to run your business, how to look after your staff, you know, keep the vans tidy, get them all suited and booted, the quality of the work that you do. What he never spoke about were the 2 elephants in the room. The first one was finance, and the second one was risk. Everybody was aiming for the dream referral, and so it was a case of building your business, getting the boys on board so that you had the capacity and wherewithal to go for these dream contracts. Whereas most people, if they were given a contract, would just say, okay, where do we sign? And then it's gone. And then, as Anita says, when it all falls out later down the line, it's a real problem. And that was always my bugbear with trade, so that we never talked about money. You know, people came to me, and then when I said, particularly when they were falling out amongst each other because they were doing referrals and falling out, and I said to Craig, I've got a problem here, and he said to me, can you not bring your crap to my door, please? And I said, this isn't my crap, Craig, this is yours. You're creating this monster of getting everybody to step outside their comfort zone and go for this bigger work, and really they don't know their ass from their elbow. And what I'm getting is the fallout from this, and it's becoming increasingly a problem. And you're entirely right when you say that really you should set up the business and then start the work. But most people don't think about that. It's the other way around. You set up the business, then you think, oh, actually we need a credit controller. So you take one on. and then, oh, we need a secretary, okay, we'll take
Get that
one.
one on, yeah.
Like you outsource it to people that can do
Absolutely.
it.
That's just human nature.
Yeah, yeah.
It is,
And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that.
No.
It's finding the relevant skills and the right people.
it
that
is,
can
it
Yeah.
is our
and
outsourcing to
understanding that
develop a
actually
skill.
construction isn't like running a shop. It's not like
No.
running a
No.
seller.
No.
It's got its own unique set of legislation and rules and guidance and quirks and jargon. But if you don't understand it,
Mm.
it'll cause you all manner of
I mean, we're all on LinkedIn, all three of us, four of us. And if you want to find us on there, because we're all pretty passionate about what we do, and we want to help, specifically me, but we want to help not necessarily the underdogs in the industry, but we want to help the industry find its feet again and find some stability and know that there are places they can go to for help that's not got massive pound signs attached. Solicitors will push the we will act for you, you won't pay anything button. They only want the vanilla jobs. That's what they're aiming for. The jobs where there isn't a dispute really, it's just an argument over a discount. And where there's a big fee at the end of it, that's what they will offer that service on. Not the stuff that's contentious, that's scrappy, because that's time consuming. And that is the bit, that is the fallout of the industry. So the aim is to spread the word and to try and get the guys to actually understand that it's to their benefit.
I think actually the issue for me is, and going back to Craig, and I don't want to talk personally about him here, but I think his background is all in private domestic.
Mhm.
His background is not in commercial, and it is a completely different beast. It is a completely different beast.
Yeah.
And I've got a number of clients, I've a number of ex-traders now come to me with all these wonderful action plans and stuff and things like that. He's done a brilliant job
Mhm.
saying to that, I've got no idea how to embed this in my business.
Or to finance it.
Or to finance, I've got no idea. So I've done all this work, a fantastic workbook with actions and things he's put in place. I've talked to one, brilliant. He's got on paper, his business should be fantastic, but I've not embedded it because I don't know how to. Hence, they arrive at my door, plus there's another 5 guys standing behind him saying, but actually, Grant, can you help him, can you help us? And I think that's a challenge. The challenge is how do I actually get this in? Because I'm going to talk to people, and I'm not very good at that. So, thanks, Anita. That was really useful. Hope you've all enjoyed it. As I say, it's just a shame, we try to get one of the things we're doing. So what do you get as a member? As I say, you get access to all the groups. Come to as many meetings as you like. We try and have a different topic each one. The one next week in Leeds, if you want to come along, next Wednesday, 3 o'clock, is on using software for your finances. So for finances software, so using software packages like Zero. Got a guy from Sagar's coming called John Burgess. I don't know if you know John.
He's a trades hubber.
He's a trades hubber, yeah. So you can come along. What we do is we also, as you say, we've had the camera on today, so you've been camera star, Anita. So you can come on, you can get access to all the videos going back all the time. So we've got ones in there on contracts, tendering, legal stuff. What else is on there, Jamie? Contracts, tendering.
Was it Rashford that did the call?
Rashford did
yeah.
that. We've got plus we've got loads of free stuff on there to help you run your business. So we've got things like job. So we help guys with job forecasts, so that actually you can get kind of loyalty with your subcontractors. You can go down the road for another 20 quid for a couple of weeks' work, but actually we've got 6 months worth of work, or as one of my clients have got 4 years worth of work.
Yeah.
So that actually I can pay you that, but you've got 4 years ongoing worth of work. So we try and do stuff like that. There's a jobs board, there's access to our experts, hopefully at a bit of a reduced rate for you. And it's, we only make a one charge on you, which is 400 quid. You can do that in direct debit, kind of 40 £40 a month. We also have these. So if somebody joins and it has your name on it, we'll give you 100 quid. So for 4 members, your membership's free. They bring 4 members, the membership's free. We actually think if we can create this kind of community of subcontractors and we get them right, because I firmly believe the issues at main contractor level, because of all the stuff I think you mentioned earlier, where they don't plan the job well, they don't do a good pre-start site survey, they don't do anything, then later on they think, shit, this job's going so wrong, but wait a minute, I've got this army of subcontractors that I can take 10% of them, 10% of them, 10% of them, and when I stand up at the end of my contracts director and he says, how much have we made in that job? I made 8%. Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Doesn't ask you how you made 8%, but actually I've kind of ripped my subcontractors off. If we can organise this army of subcontractors where they're doing things right, properly, obeying the rules, got the right company, you've got the right company policies and like processes in place, they have to change because they've got nowhere to go, because they can't argue, because you know something, when you give me an extra, I'm sending you an email to confirm it. This is what we've agreed, this is how much I said it would cost you, this is, if I don't hear from you by that day, I'll assume it's okay. Knowing that 90% of contract managers don't look at their emails. Document, audit trails, that's that, what's the
Order of the day.
100. Okay, so that's the incentive scheme. Next sessions, 3rd of October, Leeds software to help streamline your business. Sheffield, is that your competitor there?
Oh.
We've got Gary Ainley coming in to talk about debt collection. We're actually, the next one in Sheffield will be, we're changing the venue to make it a bit more accessible for the guys in next to Sheffield. So it's going to be at the Jupiter Sports Club, which is just at the back of Hillsborough. So I'm afraid if you're a Sheffield United fan, you might need your passport to get in there, or a Barnsley fan. But hopefully we'll see you then. But as I say, once come along, the first one's always free. If you want to join after that, we can have a chat with you about it. Thank you for your time.